I would like to introduce Dr. Dawn Bizarco. She is a nurse and change agent in healthcare. She's here with us today to share her passion and expertise in mindfulness. Dr. Bizarco holds an undergraduate and doctoral degree in nursing and a master's in public health. She is a certified mindfulness facilitator and a fellow in the American Academy of Nursing. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Dr. Bizarco, and I will now turn the controls over to you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be here with each of you this evening. And let me just make sure there we go. So, Kim, I'll just check with you. Do you still see full screen on the slides?
I can see your screen.
Okay, wonderful. Well, again, thanks for being here tonight. This is an exciting opportunity for me to share, as Kim indicated, my passion and excitement around mindfulness. It's been a transformative practice for me personally. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. So as Kim indicated in the introduction, I am a nurse. I hold an undergrad and doctoral degree in nursing, and mindfulness was my research project. I studied the opportunity to bring mindfulness to my nursing colleagues. I work for United Health Group and have started this business, Moment Health, to help our nurses deal with stress and burnout and compassion fatigue and really a lot of gaps in their own self-care. And through that experience, my doctoral research has now led to standing up and leading a new business. I got into mindfulness myself about 12 years ago when I was facing a lot of personal and professional challenges in my career and in my life. I'd gone through a fractured relationship. I was in graduate school and feeling completely overwhelmed, and attended a weekend mindfulness session, and it was one of the most calming and transformative things that I had ever done. I left the session, the experience, feeling like something pretty dramatic had happened to me. I wasn't quite sure what it was, but I slept well for the first time in a very long time. When we're under a lot of stress, we don't sleep well. And I noticed that I was less reactive. And I'll get into the science of mindfulness a little bit later in the presentation, but I noticed that I began to deal with emotional uprisings in a different kind of way, that I felt a bit more even-keeled as I cultivated my own personal practice. And I noticed also that it made a difference in my relationships in life, both with my family members. I have 2 children, as well as my coworkers, the people I'm supervising at work. So just a little bit of a recap of my career. I started my clinical career as a psychiatric nurse. I worked in inpatient chemical dependency and psychiatric nursing for about 7 years, and then entered the business environment in about in the late 1990s. I've worked on every side of the healthcare system, both as a direct care provider, as I mentioned, working in one of the largest insurance companies, health and well-being companies in the world, and also in health and welfare benefits consulting. So I've been able to see how the healthcare system works. I've been with United Health Group about 22 years, working in a variety of roles ranging from healthcare system reform, health information technology diffusion, working with primary care systems to change the way in which they operated to make care delivery more patient-centered and safer, and have led clinical innovation and quality. Back in 2007, I launched our Center for Nursing Advancement. We're one of the largest employers of nurses in the world with more than 33,000 nurses. And that was an opportunity for me to really understand deeply and intimately the role and appreciate more deeply the role of nurses in the healthcare delivery system and begin to impact that in a profound way. So innovating in a large and complex organization has a lot of benefits. I'm not putting my own personal money on the line. It also has a lot of challenges. So there's a lot of resources that I can draw from to start and scale a business such as Moment Health. It also presents with the challenges of large organizations don't move as quickly as perhaps small companies, And that's something that I've had to deal with over time in figuring out how to manage change in a complex matrix type organization. But at the end of the day, I'm really grateful to be making a difference in so many people's lives at a systems level, which I couldn't impact when I was working as a nurse in a hospital. I'm now working at a systems level and impacting change. So this is me in 2014 in the Himalayas in Nepal. I had the opportunity to trek with my husband and a group of other individuals south of the Himalayas for about 14 days, living in tea houses and scaling the different heights in Nepal, and really appreciating what it means to be in the moment. Any untoward step could mean life or death, and it was a time for me to be fully immersed in nature, a place where I like to be. And you'll notice the photography in my presentation this evening is all my personal photography stock, featuring sites from Sedona, Arizona, where I live, the Himalayas, as I've mentioned, as well as a recent trip to Hawaii and hiking the coast, the Nepali coast. So I wanted to just share with you, before we get into the talk of mindfulness, some of the words that I've lived by that have really informed my career, my profession, my vocation over time, and really what makes me tick as a person. I've been very intentional about my career and my life. As best I can, aligning my work with my passion, whether it be to reduce suffering and working with clients with psychiatric disease and disorders, or wanting to change the healthcare system and bringing technology to bear, and finding places where I can align my work so that it's not so much work, but it's really my passion, which makes work not work. It makes it joyful to show up at every day and day out. And also living in a physical environment as I do now, which is also very intentional for me, choosing this physical environment in northern Arizona where I live in that's very peaceful, very meditative, very spiritual, and being that very personal, purposeful about all of those things that brought me here today. I also love to grow and learn. I'm a student of life. I'm also very intentional about my academic pursuits, or have been, laying stepping stones for my career, my vocation as it's unfolded over time, and that continues to this day. So one of the things about working in a large organization and in corporate America and managing a complex career over many years is you have to be tenacious and courageous. I've been willing to challenge the status quo and stand up for what I believe in, oftentimes against all odds. It's often shaped my professional career and has brought me to the place I am now in leading this business and being in the space of mindfulness, which is quite profound. I don't give up easily, and a lot of people underestimate my tenacity, and it's allowed me to push through in very difficult, challenging times. And finally, the power of mindfulness. It's one of the best health habits, life habits that I've encountered, that I've cultivated, learning how to be fully present in this one wonderful, wild life, this only life that we have. Being kind, compassionate, and grateful for all that shows up and all that I do have each and every moment. So let me step now into an overview on the science of stress and mindfulness. And I'd like to now play a video. And I have my phone next to my computer, so hopefully the audio works for all of you. This is a video that can do better justice than I can around the impact of stress and the stress response. It takes just a moment to load.
While that's loading, can you all respond if you can hear? Oh, thank you.
To a threat. When threatened, hormones like epinephrine and cortisol wash through our body, causing our heart to beat faster. We breathe faster, and more blood flows to our muscles. These changes get us ready for fight or flight. Back when our survival depended on fight or flight, this reaction was helpful. But what happens when our mind creates a threat where none really exists? Like panicking when we can't find our cell phone, getting worried because a simple email wasn't answered, or screaming at that red light. Once our minds decide a threat exists, real or imagined, the body goes along for the ride, along with rapid heartbeats and faster breathing. And when overreacting becomes a mental habit, when we get stuck in fight or flight mode, we start to break down. Our emotions fray as irritability, anxiety, and depression take over. Our minds are stressed, opening the door to racing thoughts, poor concentration, and sleep deprivation. It can even lead to more serious health problems like heart disease and other chronic medical issues. Mindfulness offers an antidote to trigger happy stress. Research reveals mindfulness can help our minds and our bodies. But mindfulness requires regular practice, not just a one-and-done session. Developing a new mental habit takes time, but it's time well spent. So consider practicing and developing mindfulness as your health habit to better manage life's stresses.
So let me briefly recap a few points in the video. So stress is not so much the problem until it becomes chronic in nature. It's how we respond to life stress. And it doesn't matter whether the threat is real, dealing with the loss of a loved one, a chronic illness, or whether it's perceived. And when I say perceived, it's something that we imagine, we worry about, we ruminate. I have a son in the military. I spend a lot of time worrying about his health and well-being. I haven't talked with him in a while. And, you know, it causes the same sort of reaction in my mind and my body as if I'm dealing with that immediate threat. And the stress response is all about staying alive. It's very rooted in evolution. Our minds tend to wander to worry, rumination, which leads to anxiety, depression, and other mood disturbances. So when we connect with our breath and our body, as we do through mindfulness practices, it can serve as a respite, as a safe haven, by serving as an anchor for our busy minds, our attention out of ruminative thought into what's happening right now. So these practices of mindfulness meditation and other mindfulness techniques take practice. They're difficult because we're challenging our deeply rooted ways of showing up in life. We're called human beings, but we really operate like human doing. So it's really connecting the mind and the body, getting out of the cognitive way of experiencing life into the sensory experience and this bottoms-up way of knowing and experiencing life, which can open up the possibilities for us. So let's step forward now and talk a little bit about the impact of stress and why many companies like my own care about stress. So it's very pervasive. Chronic stress, which means that we're under stress in a perpetual manner where we don't know what it feels like to not be stressed. It impacts us 70% of the time related to work. So we take our work stress home, we bring our home stress into the work environment, and it takes a large toll on our effectiveness in that work environment. In fact, the next point is that absenteeism and lost time and productivity costs American corporations about $225 billion a year. People who are physically present at work but not there because they're worrying about their children, their parents, they're worrying about their own health and well-being. And up to 90%, 60 to 90% of visits to primary care providers, whether it be a physician or a nurse practitioner, have a stress-related component. So we go to the doctor with symptoms such as headache, back pain, high blood pressure. And when you peel back the onion, what sits underneath that oftentimes is stress, unmanaged stress. And in most cases, we leave the doctor's office with a prescription for medication instead of meditation. So meditation and mindfulness being an alternative therapy to deal with life stress and take control of our lives, help us feel more empowered, taking charge of our health and well-being. So the wonderful thing about mindfulness and the associated practices is they've been researched now for many, many years and in a very high quality manner with randomized control studies and other self-reported studies. So these are the ways in which mindfulness can help us show up more fully in our lives and deal with stress and burnout and the associated effects of chronic stress. It helps us deal with trauma and exposure to trauma in a more effective way. It helps us deal with the stresses that impact our physical and psychological well-being. Resiliency is a big term right now. How do we build resiliency, meaning the ability to bend and not break when we face life challenges? It boosts our performance because changes that happen through meditation impact our brains in important ways. When we practice mindfulness meditation, we lay new neural tracks, neural connectivity in our brains. It's called neuroplasticity. Even as we age, our brains can change in important ways, and that's a really good thing. We used to believe that our brains were fixed after we were teenagers. So we can lay new neural tracks in important parts of our brains associated with concentration and memory and attention. And that's good, particularly as our brains begin to age as we get older. When we're under chronic stress, our inflammation increases and our immune system becomes impaired, exposing us to diseases, chronic diseases such as heart disease, cancers, diabetes, etc. We're observing that mindfulness can offset the damage of stress by reducing inflammation in the body, measured by taking blood samples and showing at an epigenetic level that our cells change. The biomarkers associated with inflammation start to change in important ways. And it boosts our immunity. You may notice when you're under a lot of stress that it's easier to catch colds, you're sick more often. So mindfulness can be protective to that. One of the areas that's being studied quite aggressively now is mindfulness in managing chronic pain, which seems to be epidemic in our society. We spend more on managing chronic pain than we do managing all chronic diseases combined. So instead of putting everyone on prescription medications, we're seeing now that mindfulness and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy can be as effective, particularly in certain conditions of chronic pain, in reducing intensity and the perception of pain. Really important. One of the things I first noticed when I began meditating is I started to sleep better. These techniques help us fall asleep more readily because we're engaging our relaxation response, we're quieting the busy mind, and it also can help us fall asleep, again, if we should wake up in the middle of the night. There's also scientific evidence that mindfulness can help reduce mood disturbances associated with depression and anxiety, quite common in our society. It's also really good for caregivers, which we all find ourselves in these roles, whether professionally paid to be a caregiver like I am, or caring for children or parents or grandparents who suffer a lot of stress and burnout. So mindfulness helps to reduce stress and fatigue associated with caring for others and can enhance our caregiving techniques, the quality of our caregiving, and is in many ways protective to the burnout we might experience in serving in those roles. And then finally, it's really good for our hearts. Mindfulness practices can help us reduce blood pressure by expanding, by softening and dilating smooth muscle that constricts when we're under stress. It also can help us maintain a healthy exercise and eating routine. So these are some of the many benefits of practicing mindfulness, and there's a lot of really high quality research out there on this particular topic. So I've used the term mindfulness many times. Let me define it for you. So it's a quality of awareness, of present moment awareness, with attitudes of openness, acceptance, and curiosity, instead of the default mode which we often have of judgment and restriction and constriction. So this is opening to our life experiences. It's a state or a trait that helps foster patience, trust, and beginner's mind. So when I say beginner's mind, that's that openness to seeing a life experience as if for the very first time, as if through the eyes of a child. It helps us connect more deeply with ourselves and with others, and to focus our attention on what's happening right now. And it's this intentional focus that helps to fuel our performance and enables better decision making. And just like building any other capacity or muscle in our bodies, building the mindfulness muscle and expanding our natural capacity to be mindful requires practice and exposure, this repeat exposure to these techniques. So there are many ways to practice mindfulness. One of the foundational techniques is meditation. In mindfulness meditation, we typically use our breath or our body as an anchor to connect our minds, our attention, into what's happening right now. And the body and the breath are wonderful anchors because they're always in the now. They're not in the future and not in the past. We can also practice mindfulness doing yoga, spending time in nature, or focused activities such as handiwork, painting, Tai Chi, Qigong, calligraphy, all those sorts of things. Establishing a foundational practice, though, is really important. It's just like working your body out when you go to the gym. None of us would ever dispute the health benefits of physical exercise right now. And many are relating mindfulness as an equivalent health habit as physical exercise. This is the mental exercise of working the mind, which has a number of mental and physiological benefits. So I've talked a lot so far, and I'd like to now lead you through a brief little mindfulness practice. A simple little meditation that we can engage in at any time. And this particular practice combines elements of self-compassion. It's a companion to mindfulness. So begin by settling into a relaxed posture in which your body can be supported and is comfortable for the duration of the meditation. This will be about a 7-minute meditation, maybe slightly longer. Placing your feet on the floor, legs uncrossed. Allowing your hands to rest on your thighs or cradled in your lap. Gently closing your eyes if that feels safe and comfortable for you. Or just a soft half gaze, a few feet out in front of you on the floor. And noticing the sounds in the room or outside of the room. Noticing sounds that are closer and a bit more distant. Noticing how sounds change moment by moment, just like all of our life experiences. Taking now a few slow, easy breaths. Feeling the body and allowing any unnecessary tension that you might be holding to just release and leave the body. For many of us, it's coming to the end of the day, busy day. You might be holding a lot of tension, in particular in the neck and the shoulders, the jaw. Feel what it would be like for you to allow those places to soften and to settle and to let go of whatever you're holding. Now, if you like, placing a hand over your heart. It's really nice if you can make some skin-to-skin contact, placing your hand over a bare place on your chest, or another soothing place like your cheek, maybe over another hand, as a reminder that we're bringing awareness and also affectionate awareness to our breathing and to ourselves today. And you can leave your hand there through the entire duration of the practice or allow it to settle whenever you're ready. Now beginning to notice the fact that you're breathing. Feeling your body breathe. Feeling your body breathe in and breathe out. Just allowing your body to breathe you. Nothing you need to do. Allowing this to be really simple, really easy. Noticing the rhythm of your breathing. Flowing into the body and leaving the body on the in and out breath. And taking a moment now to feel this natural rhythm of your breathing. Not thinking so much about breathing, but connecting with the breath in the body wherever you feel it most vividly. Feeling your whole body moving with the breath, just like the movement of the sea. Your mind will naturally wander about like a curious child on a playground or even a puppy. When that happens, just notice what pulls your attention away, whether it be thoughts or sounds or sensations in the body. And just invite it back again, returning the focus back to sensations of breathing without beating yourself up or giving yourself a hard time, acknowledging that this is what the mind does. If you have a mind, it will wander. One of the wonderful things about the practice is we have opportunities to begin again, over and over again. Now allowing your body to be gently caressed, gently rocked by your breath. And if you like, just giving yourself over to your breathing. Allowing your breathing to be all that there is. Calming the breath. Just breathing. Being, breathing. And now when you're ready, gently and slowly releasing your connection with your breath and sitting quietly in your own experience for just a few moments. And allowing yourself to feel whatever there is to be felt. And to be just as you are. And allowing that to be enough in this moment. And even observing if there are changes in the body or the mind after practicing in this way. By tuning into how am I feeling right now? What's going on in my inner landscape? And now when you're ready, releasing the meditation, the practice, and slowly and gently opening your eyes if you close them. Bringing your awareness back to the webinar, the screen, the beautiful mountain on the screen. So thank you all for your practice this afternoon, this evening. This is a short little affectionate breathing meditation. It takes very little time to really drop in and settle in and connecting with ourselves in this way. And you may have noticed when we begin to still the body, we also begin to quiet the mind. So you may be wondering, well, how do I develop this mindfulness practice? I'll share a few thoughts with you. So as I mentioned earlier, building this mindfulness muscle, just like working your body out at the gym, lifting weights, requires practice. We can't wake up one day and decide to go run a marathon. We have to work up to that, building that muscle memory. We're now building our mindfulness memory. So one of the best things we can do is to begin a daily sitting practice. Taking a couple minutes at the beginning of your day, sitting in stillness, monitoring the breath, sensations of breathing, working with that redirection, which will happen, that distraction and redirection, bringing awareness back to the body and breathing, and doing this over and over again. It's sort of like the pendulum on a clock. We direct our focus into the breath, to the body. We notice this distraction that it's being pulled off, and we just bring it back again. Not a problem. Finding ways to integrate mindfulness into things you're doing already. So I used to be one of these people that listened to CDs in my car and lots of music on the radio. And I've appreciated the benefit and the power of silence, of driving home from work or to a meeting without the radio on at all. Just being completely present with the experience of driving, noticing my hands on the steering wheel, observing my surroundings, stopping at a red light instead of getting all frustrated, using that as an opportunity to take a couple deep breaths. Another wonderful practice is mindful eating, bringing awareness into eating instead of eating to mark that off our to-do list in front of technology or the computer, really savoring the experience of eating. So many other ways to practice mindfulness moment by moment. The other thing that I think is really important is community support. So connecting with someone, it could be a loved one, a family member, someone in school or at work, where you can practice together. You can take a few deep breaths, maybe texting one another during the middle of a busy day and saying, hey, let's just take a few deep breaths together. So all of this can be supported by a number of resources that are available, such as apps, online recordings, which is very helpful in the beginning. If you've not meditated before, you may notice your mind is really, really busy. Yes, it is. And the guidance, as I provided to you earlier, and listening to guidance using an app can be helpful in keeping that attention concentrated. Even something like counting breaths. So if I find that my mind is really busy or I'm worrying about something, I'll count my breathing. So counting 1 on the in-breath, and 1 and 2 on the next in-breath, and counting up to 10, and then counting backwards back down again. Gives the mind something to focus on, keeping the awareness, most notably on sensations of breathing, only about 5%, a little soft touch on the counting itself. So I'll stop here now, Kim, and be very happy to take any questions or comments that anyone in the audience might have about what I've shared with you this evening, how people are maybe practicing mindfulness that they'd like to share with the group. So I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bizarco. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead and post them in the question box. I particularly appreciated the meditation session. I've been here since 8 o'clock this morning. So
oh, yeah. I'm glad. I'm glad it was helpful. Yeah, we just need these little mindful pauses during the day to regroup and recharge. It can be very helpful.
Absolutely. Anybody have any questions?
So one of the questions that also often comes up is, I can't control my busy mind. What do I do with thoughts? And that's often a myth in mindfulness meditation, that we need to clear our minds of thoughts. The reality is we can't do that. We can't clear our minds of thoughts. This is about cultivating a different relationship with thinking. Instead of seeing thoughts as facts and definitive, it's observing thoughts as if from afar. So when I led the little meditation, we focused our awareness on listening, treating thoughts just as sound, noticing how thoughts arise, linger in our field of awareness, and pass away again. When we get into trouble with thinking is when we get caught up in this train of thoughts, and it's as if instead of watching the train stop at the station and pass away, we jump on the train and get caught up in the whole storyline of thinking and dramas, and therein lies a lot of our difficulty. So observing from afar thinking and thoughts can be very, very helpful and enhanced through our practices of meditation.
Okay, we're starting to get a couple of questions coming in. Are there any ways to help me practice mindfulness, such as apps? I think you had mentioned an app. Do you know what they would look for?
Yeah, great question. So there are a lot of free apps out there that I highly recommend. My favorite is called Insight Timer. Insight Timer, you can download it through the App Store. It's free. It offers bells and chimes as well as a timer and a number of different guided meditations. So you can choose meditations for any time duration that works best for you. There's also an app called Headspace. There's an app called Calm, which I really like a lot. And most of these apps have a free level. And then if you really like it, you can buy up to a subscription. And I do recommend using an app in the beginning. They can be very, very helpful.
Okay, very good. Next question. Can you share how your business relates to organizations? Do you teach individuals or organizations?
Yeah, so great question. So our business model is both B2B, meaning business to business, where we sell our programs into organizations, to leaders within organizations that then offer our programming to employees within that particular corporation. We also do offer our business directly to consumers. So people who just want to personally engage in programming or join live guided drop-in sessions, we also make that accessible to people. Thanks for the question.
Okay, next question. Can you provide us with your doctoral study? What was your dissertation topic?
So yes, so it's available on open access. So if you go out on Google Scholar and just Google my last name and T as the small letter T, MBSR, you'll find my published research. It was published in the Journal of Workplace Behavioral Health, and you can download that without any copyright restrictions. You can't pass it around, but for your individual consumption, you can find it there.
Okay, and somebody says, I have had more challenging and longer mindfulness meditations, which I can't stick with. Your example was nice and left me feeling I could do more rather than struggling to finish. Thank you for letting me see it. It can be simple as a novice.
Yeah, so there's this whole continuum of mindfulness practices that we can do. And I instruct most of my early participants, just start with a few minutes a day. In the traditional way of teaching MBSR, the instruction was to begin with 45 minutes of practice a day, and I found that to be untenable for myself and for others. And so we've really titrated down the amount of meditation time and instruction for practice. So there are a lot of available short practices that you can use, and I think that's a really insightful comment, is that when we get into this struggle with the busy mind and we find ourselves in tension, in many ways mindfulness and these meditations can make us feel more stressed out. We don't want that to happen. So stepping into this, allowing it to be really simple and easy and gentle is a really great place to start. So choosing meditations that are simple, breath and body meditation, a short body scan, even a short little loving kindness practice is a good doorway to enter. So thank you for raising that.
Just another comment. I have always done the breathing when I am overwhelmed when it comes to some class assignments I have had.
Yeah, breathing's a good thing, right? And when we're under a lot of stress, we may notice that we're breathing at the top of our lungs. So good for you for observing that breathing and deep breathing can have a very calming effect. And there's a physiological reason why that happens. When we're under stress, we're engaging our fight or flight or freeze response of the autonomic nervous system, so the sympathetic component of the nervous system. And it makes our palms sweaty, it makes us short of breath, it makes our heart beat more rapid. You may notice dry mouth. So we need to engage techniques to downregulate that activation of the sympathetic nervous system, and even taking some deep belly breaths, slow breathing, deeper and longer than normal, can have a very calming effect because it offsets what's happening with the sympathetic nervous system. So bringing awareness to the breath in the body, breathing deep down into the belly, engaging the relaxation parasympathetic nervous system. It also stimulates the vagus nerve, which innervates the entire body. So at the core of meditation is breathing and deep breathing. So good for you for using those techniques. Keep it up, and it's very useful for all of us day in and day out.
Okay, just another comment. We had a mindfulness workshop at my work for 6 weeks. The doctor who held it gave us assignments to be more mindful and be more aware of the present and what is going on around us. I found this to be very helpful.
Yeah, so the practice is about awareness, as you've shared. And what we become aware of is how often we're not aware of what's happening in the moment. So when we begin to calm the body and the mind, we begin to explore what's happening in my inner landscape and what is my conditioning. How do I respond to life events? And we begin to notice that we're often triggered quite easily by certain things that happen, whether it be stress at school or at work. And so when we practice mindfulness, it creates a space. You could think of it as a pause. Things start to slow down a little bit. And when we begin to slow down, it allows us to more consciously respond instead of knee-jerk react to what we're triggered by. And it sounds like that's a lot of what you were experiencing. Really great comment. Thank you.
We have a question. Can this type of practice be covered by insurance?
Oh, great question, given I work for a big insurance company. So today, there are some companies that are covering this as a health benefit, either an insurance benefit, and some companies are covering it as a benefit incentive program, meaning you can take a mindfulness program to reduce your premium expenses or get credits to offset premium expenses through health insurance. I think what we're going to see over time, and I'm not speaking on behalf of United Health Group, but I'm speaking just based on my understanding of the industry, is as we have more consistency in the certification of the mindfulness teachers, that there's likelihood that more insurance companies will see the benefits in health improvement and reduction in unnecessary utilization of healthcare services, where it will lend itself more to a covered benefit. We're just very early on in the mindfulness research in the field right now, but I hope over time that that's exactly what we see, particularly for conditions like chronic pain, low back pain, people dealing with, very compromising psychological conditions. So stay tuned. I hope this evolves over time. Great question.
Next question. A friend says to breathe from the fifth bellow. Any information on this?
Breathing from the fifth bellow. Well, you know, we get really funky about how we should breathe when we practice breathing, and there's this yogic breathing, which I'm not as familiar with. So a couple of theories of thought. One is that we shouldn't get all caught up on breathing needing to happen a certain kind of way. There are some structured breathing practices that encourage you to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, or in and out through the nose. Sometimes breathing in and out through the nose is helpful because it slows the breathing down. I think the main point is to be aware of what the body feels like when you're breathing. There is a sleep practice that I teach that goes by the series of 4-7-8, where you breathe in through the nose on a count of 4, hold your breath on a count of 7, and breathe out through an open mouth on a count of 8. It's really helpful. Andrew Weil, through the University of Arizona, developed this practice. It's really helpful in falling asleep if you wake up in the middle of the night and doing series of these breathing techniques. But I think what's most important is noticing sensations of breath in the body and allowing the breath to breathe you, not manufacturing your breathing in any way. Thank you for that.
Okay, and I think this confirms what you just said, and this is a comment. It says, it used to be very difficult for me to fall asleep, but I started meditating and counting. It has helped me immensely to relax, and it takes less time to fall asleep.
Yep, I do this myself. I used to count sheep, now I count my breath. So this breathing, 4-7-8 breathing exercise is really helpful. The other thing I do all the time when I teach people, I talked about this earlier, is adding counting to the breath, even when the mind is really busy when you're trying to meditate, is very, very helpful. Counting cycles of breathing, up to 10, up to 21, whatever it is, counting backwards. I use this a lot if I wake up in the middle of the night, and most of the time, it'll put me back to sleep. It'll give your attention something to focus on, because most of us, when we wake up in the middle of the night, the mind starts wandering, we're ruminating, we're worrying, and that just creates more insomnia. Great comment.
Okay, next question. In the past, I have used a focused progression of feeling gravity in each part of the body. I never had any training. Is this a mindfulness technique?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So there's a technique called the body scan that we teach in mindfulness meditation. It's very much like this, where we bring our awareness into the body and we systematically explore sensations through the body, starting with the top of the head or the tips of our toes, and we bring our sensory awareness into those parts of the body that we're exploring. So while it can help us feel relaxed, it's a very powerful attention-focused practice, because we're giving the mind something to do. We're giving the mind a job. So these two practices of progressive relaxation and the body scan are kind of cousins in the same family. They have slightly different intentions. They may result in the same sort of thing. So what you're describing, as I understand it, is a progressive relaxation exercise that I would equate to the body scan in mindfulness, which we do to fall awake, not so much to fall asleep, but it can also cause us to feel very relaxed. Very simple, similar, I should say, techniques. Great question.
Next question, would this meditation help with headaches that come on?
Ah, yes. You guys are wonderful. Amazing group. Great questions. So there's evidence of how mindfulness can help us with migraine headaches in particular, which I don't suffer from, fortunately. But I have used meditation when I've noticed like a tension headache coming on, and usually that's related to stress. So there is supporting evidence that mindfulness practices can be helpful with chronic pain and with headaches, migraine headaches or other headaches. So it's really noticing the sensations of when that headache is coming on, that tension headache. First of all, one of the best things we can do for headaches is just drink, get some fluids, drink some water. but also the tension associated with headaches can help be obviated when we practice mindfulness. So it's probably worth giving it a try.
Okay. Do you have any good reading material that you would recommend?
Yes, many good reading materials. Let's see, do I have any resources back here? No, I don't. Anything by Jon Kabat-Zinn is a great read that I would suggest you pursuing. There's a wonderful book by, I'm looking at my bookcase, which is filled with mindfulness resources, by Mark Williams and Denny Perlman called Mindfulness. There's a wonderful book called Fully Present by one of my meditation teachers, Diana Winston and Susan Smalley. How about if I do this, Kim? Because this is just such an important question. How about if I put together a favorite reading list and you can share it with the group?
That would be great. We will do that.
Would that be helpful?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll do that. Because there are many, many great resources. If you're really into neuroscience and neuroplasticity, I have recommendations. If you want to just read sort of fun, light mindfulness reading, 10% Happier by Dan Harris. So I'll put together a reading list.
Okay, and so for all of you that are on the webinar, I will post that in the Connections Coffee Shop as a document there, so you'll have access to it. All right, next question or comment. I try to practice mindfulness by reminding myself, no matter where I am or what I am doing, to always be here right now.
Yeah, you know, my foundational program is trademarked, Be Here Now. That's exactly the essence of mindfulness, is how do we bring ourselves into this present moment, because life is made up of moments. And in many ways, this is the only moment that we know that we have. It's the only moment that's guaranteed. And so it's a wonderful way to frame up how to be present. The other thing I'll just share about mindfulness is, you know, I came into this practice more scientifically than through Buddhist studies, which many of my contemporaries come in, and what I teach is purely secular. But, you know, the tenets of this is recognition that everything is impermanent. Everything changes moment by moment. I have a 98-year-old grandmother whom I love dearly, and being 98 has its joys and its challenges. And sometimes when I speak with her, she'll talk about having a great day, and other times it's about the pain that's nearly overcoming her existence. And I often tell her, this too shall pass. Even those moments we find ourselves in that we never want to see change, this too shall pass. Even the most difficult situations we find ourselves in, this too shall pass. So it is really the importance and reinforcement of how do we live our lives in the moment, because it is the only moment that we truly have, the only moment we truly can have. And for me, that is just such a profound reminder of the importance of the practice, is life is impermanent. The only guarantees in life is that we all grow old, we all get sick, and we all die. And how do we live our lives completely to the fullest, mindfully? So thanks for that comment. It was perfect.
Next question, are there meditation certifications out there? If so, is there an organization you would recommend?
Yes. So this is a field that's emerging, as I mentioned earlier. So my recommendation would be, if you're interested in this field of study, first of all, it begins with your own personal practice. None of us get into a meditation certification program just because we want to. It's because we embody mindfulness. We teach from our embodied practice. So choose an academic organization that has a long research base. I went through UCLA's Mindful Awareness Program. The University of Massachusetts, the Center for Mindfulness, is another one that teaches MBSR teachers. University of California, San Diego. So go online and research MBSR or mindfulness teacher training and choose programs that are affiliated with an academic organization. because it's really important that we ground ourselves with the evidence, with the science. There are other programs out there that are more, how do I say this, more related to individuals' personal preferences. And the challenge with that is over time, back to the great question earlier around insurance reimbursement, over time, for this to be covered as a covered benefit, we need standardization in the teacher training, and that's going to require linkages with an academic organization.
Okay, next question. Regarding your photography, do you feel any change in your breathing while taking pictures?
Well, I certainly feel changes in my breathing looking at my pictures. So this particular picture is in Sedona, Arizona. It was on a hike I did with my daughter in October, nearly 3 or 4 years ago now, and it was this kind of misty day. There was a little bit of rain coming. So I can't say that I feel changes in my breathing taking the picture, but I'm really drawn to capturing the moment photographically of these events that I have in nature. And then looking back at this now, I remember exactly where I was, this particular picture, in that moment, what we were doing, how I felt in my body, and it just brings all that back to me. Photography is a wonderful way to capture moments and to revisit those moments. So it's not so much in the moment of taking the picture, but bringing me back to this time, this moment, who was I with, what was I feeling, and just remembering the precious nature of that moment.
Okay, and one other comment. Please add mindfulness for better sleep reading resources if available. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Please add mindfulness for better sleep reading resources to the
list. Okay, great. Yes, I will. Yeah. We promoted a sleep series a couple weeks ago. We had seats for 500 people, and the class closed within 20 minutes because we had overwhelming response rates. Wow. We all have sleep issues and performance are a huge problem in our society. So yes, thank you for that.
And I just have a question myself about compartmentalization. Is that a part of mindfulness? I know sometimes I've told students to, if they feel like they're overwhelmed and feel like they have too many things going on and don't know where to focus, to try to compartmentalize, where you allow yourself a specific time to think about what's going on at home and a specific time to think about what's going on at work, and the same with school, so that you picture your mind as like a hallway with different rooms coming off of the hallway, and you open one room and you allow yourself only to be in that room at that time, and then close that room to move on to a different room.
Yeah, there is some science around that, and people who have talked about the benefits of compartmentalization. And maybe in some ways I practice that myself. So if it's helpful to you, I don't know that research very well. If it's helpful to you, I would continue with what works. What mindfulness teaches us is to be okay and to accept all of our present moment experiences just as they are. Now, when things become really overwhelming, I'm dealing with actually it came up today. A dear friend of mine's husband has had a terrible accident and he's paralyzed. And she called me this afternoon and she said, I need you because I know you're going to be really present and that you can bring some comfort and support to me and my family because we don't know what else to do. So I'm a little preoccupied myself with all that she's suffering with because it impacts me. And when you find yourselves in these moments of just overwhelming distress and overload, I think compartmentalization is a useful thing, where I'm going to spend this amount of time dealing with this issue at hand, because when you allow it to become overwhelming and consume your entire existence, it can be depleting. So I do think there's value in partitioning. Like I think about rooms in a house. Like I'm going to put this worry in this room and this thing in that room, and I'm going to step into the room when I'm ready to deal with it. And otherwise, I'm going to really just maintain my focus of attention on what I'm dealing with right now. I think there are benefits to that. What mindfulness would teach is how to be with whatever shows up in any moment with equanimity, with an even-keeled way of mind and body and emotions. So I'm not going to offer advice one way or the other because I think it's up to us to figure out what works best for us. But I use those techniques myself, Kim. When things become so overwhelming I can't deal with it, I'm going to put it aside. And that's a skillful way of dealing with life.
Okay, thank you. We have one more question, and then I think we'll come to a close here. Have you read or heard of a book called Flow by Mihaly, very long last name that starts with a C in it? I'm going to spell it
Flow.
SIKSZENTMIHALYI. He says, it has changed my views and has helped me in many ways to live every moment. It immerses a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment in the process of our daily activities.
I haven't, but I've added that to my personal reading list, so thank you for sharing.
Very good. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any more questions tonight, so I speak on behalf of all of our attendees when I say thank you so much for taking the time to present this information to us this evening, Dr. Bizarco. And thank you for all of our attendees. It's been great spending this time with you. This was very, very helpful information, and I think a lot of us will hopefully put this into use, and it will help us as we move through our studies.
Wonderful. Well, I wish you all the best. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'll follow up with the reading list. And just be mindful. Live in the moment.
Okay.
Thank you
so much. I'm going to end the recording now, and everybody have a good evening.